I want to jump to the NL Central. We're staying in the Midwest because Midwest is best. The good news is the Reds aren't a team I want to talk about a lot. They're still dog shit. They did one thing this offseason. I'm sorry, two.
Bad.
Gavin Lux, who don't post this part, editor, because everyone got really cranky with me in the TikTok comments when I called Gavin Lux dog shit. But he is. Dude, so many Dodgers fans in their replies weeping. And I'm like, dude, he's got like a 710 career OPS. I'm sorry, he's just not a good player. He's a platoon. He's an average platoon. I look at this rotation, it's still not done. It's still not enough. I
love Chase Burns, though.
We'll say that one more time.
I really like Chase Burns.
I mean, that's awesome, but he's not
going to be there this year, but I like him a lot. And I like Louder a lot. And he will be there.
The thing is, he's not in the rotation to start the year. Like, I'm using Fangraphs roster resource, so like we could debate the validity of that if you want, but Brady Singer in Great American Small Park is their 2 starter.
Yeah.
And like that's just not enough. Like he could not. That trade for them was horrible. I praised it for the Royals, terrible for Cincinnati. I get that you have too many cooks, and India was an easy guy because of service time. But Brady Singer, there's a video on our page of me going, "What's Brady Singer's biggest issue?" Oh, he's a little fly ball dependent to get outs.
In Great American Small Park.
Why are you trading him to Cincinnati? Terrible acquisition. I love Hunter Green, but
it's not the Royals' fault for trading him to Cincinnati. Why is Cincinnati going after a guy who has fly ball problems?
Because they're in a poorly run organization. Like, and I'm not saying that just to slander, but they are. Like, they're a poorly run organization. The lineup is full of mid. It really outside of Ellie, and like I think Ellie can make that superstar jump, but it's a lot of mid. Like
Ellie and McClain are their only 2 like guys that I think are actually really good.
I guess like Steer is always hurt. Austin Hayes, mid. Gavin Lux, mid. Candelario, the definition of mid. Jake Fraley and TJ Friedel are a couple nice platoon options. Jose Trevino is starting at catcher. They've got Will Benson starting in right field, and he's got like a 50% K rate. Like, and a Will Benson home run is an electric factory highlight reel. But and I know I'm biased, and maybe I should let somebody talk that doesn't just purely hate this organization with every fiber of its being. But like, I just look at this lineup and I'm like, it's just a lot of fucking mid.
They just seem like they just seem like a 68 win team to me.
I think that's a bit outlandish, but I'd love for that to be true.
Like,
if they win 68 games, that means the Cardinals have won like 85. I'm very pro that comment. Scott, how do you feel about the team in Ohio? There you go. That's how you unbiasedly set that one.
Yeah, right. I cannot stand anything involved with their pitching staff. Sans Hunter Green. Hunter Green's my dog.
Now I agree. Now you got me back.
Yeah. It's like the gif of the chick that's like, oh no. Oh.
Yeah, exactly. Brittany Broski.
Yeah. Sans Hunter Green, I can't stand anything they've done. And not only rotation, like a lot of the bullpen included. I know Diaz has, somebody that has showed promise and whatnot, but like this is a staff as a whole that I just do not trust. Mm-hmm. And when in a division that is, and like I know that both of the central divisions historically are clowned on for their lack of competitiveness. Like if you don't have pitching in the NL Central, you will not survive. Like you won't. You are not going to be a competitive team late in the year. I think that honestly, the point that Carson made earlier about Bobby Witt and comparing him to Ellie on the Reds is an extremely valid one in the sense that like that dude has to play Superman or else they're kind of fucked. And like, I actually like several of the pieces offensively. I don't hate their lineup top to bottom, and they play in such a little league park that like, that's certainly going to steal them some games. But at the end of the day, they need Ellie to be insane and they need the bottom half of the rotation to not be dog shit for them to even win 85 or 86 games. So like, this team's not going to be like one of the worst teams in baseball. I don't think that they'll be competitive. They'll steal some wins. Ellie will steal some games by himself. He's an incredible talent. But as far as 162, where I see them standing against the other teams in this division, that I actually think is pretty darn competitive at this point with the rise of some pitching on the Pirates and whatnot. Yeah, man, like I don't have any faith in the Cincinnati Reds. I guess that's kind of where I stand.
Well,
My
and
68 prediction was
ahead,
predicting about the Pirates existing, so I'll bump it up to about like 75 to 77.
Again, I try not to be insanely biased because I know that I'm always a glass half full fan of my own ball club, but like I look at the Reds and I'm just like, they're like the different and Scott, I appreciate you calling back to my point about with Bobby Witt. Here's the difference between Bobby Witt and Ellie De La Cruz. 80% of Bobby Witt is like 7.5 WAR. I think 80% of Ellie right now is like 5.5 or 6. That's not to say that Ellie can't get to that point, but like,
and that's not to say 5.5 or 6 is bad. Like obviously, that's still
Superman and Batman are both superheroes. But if I had to pick one with morals not being included, I'm gonna pick Superman. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna pick the guy that is gonna beat the shit out of you.
Aside.
Morality aside, if Superman didn't care about morals, Batman v Superman is over in 2 seconds, and that's kind of how I view Bobby Witt and Ellie De La Cruz. Like Bobby Witt just does everything a little bit to a lot better. He does everything a little bit to a lot better. Like Ellie De La Cruz is like not a good base runner. I know we said we're keeping it short, but like just because you're fast as shit doesn't mean you should be trying to steal 70 times a year. Because he put up an atrocious number last year. I don't care if you steal 57 bases if you get caught almost 30 times. That's inefficient. Yeah. You shouldn't do that. But I digress. The Reds, like, it's like, oh man, if you only look at the OPS of all the Reds lineup, you're like, wow, they can really do some things. And it's like, yeah, but they play at a high school baseball field. So they're going to fraud their way to 750. And they have like one good defender on their entire roster. And I understand part of that. When you build a park like that, you're like, you know what, fuck it. We just got to load up on offense and not really care about defense.
I need to stop you for a minute. He only got caught 16 times.
How many times did I say?
30.
Not 16.
That's what it felt like. That's still a lot, though. What percentage is that?
80.
Yeah, that's not going to
I didn't do that math in my head. I just caught up to that before.
Yeah, 80% is not good enough. You shouldn't be doing that then. Yeah, you should be stealing like 40 a year so you can get that up to like 90%.
If you're not at like 90, the math works out to be like a negative value from attempt.
I think as a team you need to steal at least 75, yeah. I'll transition this to, we've talked about Bobby Witt, then we've talked about Ellie De La Cruz. We're just going sort of down the tiers of superhero. The sort of Hawkeye or Black Widow of Superman on this team would be O'Neal Cruz for the Pittsburgh Pirates. They're moving him to center field. I think that's the right call. I think it's insane to have Slender Man like that out there, all like 6'8" of him. I think it's also absolute balderdash that they're playing Brian Reynolds in right field. He can't defend. This team was absolutely ripe for an Anthony Santander, a Pete Alonso, someone with a pulse. And my uncle is a big Pirates fan. I got a very close friend that's a Pirates fan. I get there's optimism, Scott, about them being competitive, but I forget what podcast I was listening to. But they made a very tangent point that I think I agree with. I'd almost be more pissed off now if I was a Pirates fan than I was like 3 years ago. Because 3 years ago when you had nothing, there was like, all right, we're rebuilding. We shouldn't be buying in free agency. Like, I get it. Like, we got to see what we got. We got to see who rises to the top. The moment you call up Paul Skeens, the clock has started. You have 6 years to build a winning baseball team. And I look at this lineup, and even with Spencer Horwitz healthy, IKF is the opening day shortstop.
Fuck me.
Dude, and Scott, even better. Scott, you ready for something even worse? Do you know who their starting first baseman is projected to be?
Ready to list?
No, he's coaching for them.
Oh, right. Yeah, I forgot about that.
DJ Stewart.
Wait, he's what now?
Like, I think he's auditioning, I think, to have a legitimate coaching job. Scott, I'm not exaggerating.
No, he's a member of the Mariners right now.
I was gonna say he just signed a minor league deal like a week.
Oh,
or so.
well, he was at Pirates camp as an instructor. So we'll talk about the Mariners then. That's a tough look. This is the projected opening day lineup for them. 37-year-old Tommy Pham, Brian Reynolds, O'Neal Cruz, McCutchen, somehow an above-average hitter, DH, furry power. I'm all for it. You know, he'll have some moments. Joey Bart, we're gonna believe in that insanity run. DJ Stewart, Nick Gonzalez, Cabrian Hayes, IKF. And the bench projected is Endy Rodriguez, who missed all of last year with TJ, Jared Triolo, Adam Frazier, and Jack Sawinski.
Adam Frazier's back.
He is back. He was signed in January, I believe.
It's hilarious. I didn't know that.
A lineup.
Like,
sure.
I just...
Certainly.
They are the Turbo Mariners. Like, this is the Turbo Mariners. The Mariners at least have a lineup where you're like, I can be fooled into thinking they can platoon their way to an okay lineup. But, like, fuck, man.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think the Pirates are like the poster child of like what a 77 win baseball team looks like. It's like this is a team that's going to win some games they shouldn't. They are going to have one of, if not the best pitcher on the planet every fifth day. That's certainly going to help a lot. They have some really solid talent behind him now as well, if it can stay healthy. Like, they have some pitching. They have some dogs. They do not have a bullpen that I'm uber confident in, and their lineup is
David Bednar is.
Dude, yeah, Bednar. Like, and their lineup is rancid. And so, like, fuck it, dude. I'd play O'Neal Cruz in center field too. Like, might as well. Like, fucking, let's try and figure it out. Like, it's wild, man. I think the Pirates, like I said, will because of the pitching they have in the top end of the rotation, they will inevitably be like solid enough and like I said, maybe steal some games that you don't expect them to. Well, if Skeens is on the mound, I guess maybe you just expect them to, but like they'll win some games that against much better teams. But over the course of the season, I have a really hard time believing this is a team that's going to be like over 500.
And I'll be honest, I look at their rotation now. I think it's a top 10 rotation in baseball.
Yeah,
I really do.
Mm-hmm.
Garrett
Drew,
Jones.
I cut you off. Yeah, Drew, go ahead. But like Heaney as the 4, when you got Ashcraft and like I'm biased, but I'm a Johan Oviedo guy. He's coming back off TJ. He was part of that Jose Quintana deal. I think Oviedo's not going to light the world on fire, but to me, he's a definition of a 5-starter, and like I think that he's a really good 5-starter. I don't know. You're just pissing away this rotation with a bullpen that is just so lackluster in a lineup of just like really.
Yeah. Which of your hated enemies comes next, Carson?
I will say real quick. I like Scott. I want to ask you this: had the Pirates gone the full cheapo route, which I still think they could have done, why the fuck didn't you just sign like Jose Iglesias and play him at shortstop? Like, there were so many. Like, at first, when the offseason first started, I remember being like, oh, the Pirates should sign Conforto. But then he got 20 mil, so I'm like, all right, maybe not. Because, like, I get not wanting to pay 20 mil on a 1 year to a strong side platoon like that. But I'm like, dude, you could have got Iglesias for jack shit. And I just... Even if you want to be cheap as shit, there was a way to make this lineup. I don't hate the Pham signing because he was like a 95. He's going to be like a 95 WRC plus, but I cannot abide by IKF. I really can't. That kills me. We are moving on to the Chicago Cubs. 86 wins. I'll say it, and I'm not afraid to say it. This
Their
team won
pitching does not impress me.
They won.
That's their weakness right now. Is their rotation is not good.
They are the high end of what the Cardinals lineup could look like right now, in my opinion. Which is, what if you took a lineup full of one very good hitter and a bunch of pretty solids, and you gave a competent starting rotation? That's what the Cubs give to me. To be clear, they've got the best left-handed pitching prospect in baseball. If you know, you know. So, I mean, from a future standpoint, future Hall of Famer and future one in a rotation, locked, anchored. But it's a lot I love Matt Shaw, but I think it's a lot to ask of him, of just like, we're going to give you 600 plate appearances and you're going to be immediately a 2 to 3 win player. I just think it's tough. I know Miguel Amaya had a really good second half. I'm not moved. I don't know. I'll defer to the less biased crowd. Drew, we can go with you
I
first.
think the upside is that their rotation could be pretty solid. I think Steele is very good. I think their bullpen could be really good, in just the fact that they added Presley to an already average bullpen, and I think he's still got a little bit of run left in him. And then their lineup could be really good this year. Like, they added Kyle Tucker. They still have Bush. They still have Horner, who could be above average. They have Seiya Suzuki, who's a stud when he is in the lineup. And they have enough lineup depth to make me buy into them winning the division, potentially. But the downside is just, I don't know how long their rotation depth will buy them time, because they don't have upside in the rotation. Like, Imanaga is only getting older, and he's lost 2 inches of IVB on his fastball just from last fall to this spring. And his fastball shape is way worse, and he's been kind of getting rocked around a little bit from what I've been seeing. And like, they just added Lance Lynn to be a rotation depth piece. And it's like, how many guys can you sign that throw 91-mile-an-hour fastballs in 2025 Major League Baseball?
Twins legend Lance Lynn.
Yankees legend Lance Lynn.
Yeah, Scott, please feel free to take the floor and either throw water on my haterism or validate it.
Yeah, I think, man, the Cubs are really weird to me. I think that there is a lot of, they're weird, dude. Like, that is my opinion.
Yeah, you know what? They're weird all the time, but yeah.
They're weird, dude. Like, this is a weird roster and a weird team. And like, the roster construction is odd, and like how last season ended was odd. And I just,
if I may interject, last season ended exactly how I thought it was going to end for them, being fully serious. I'm not even being a hater. I'm not being a hater. That team was not good enough to make the playoffs. And I know they like hung around, and Rudy could magically pop in and yap my head off about run differential. But I'm like, that team was just the high end of mid. And I don't know if Kyle Tucker is so unbelievably good that he takes them from the high end of mid to like a legitimate playoff team.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that one of the biggest factors for this team, I absolutely love Matt Shaw, and I think very highly of Matt Shaw, and I think that he will have a solid season, legitimately. I think that there are a lot more question marks offensively than people want to admit. Like, I know that you guys just spent a while talking about the rotation and talking about the the Cardinals-ness of it all with low velo.
Not even slander right now. I think that's a very fair assessment, dude.
I think that that even aside, because there's still like some names in there that I like
For sure.
Legitimately, I think that people are just assuming that this entire lineup is going to be really sound offensively. And I do not think that that's a guarantee. I think that this team will be middle of the road. They'll go on hot stretches. They'll go on cold stretches. And they'll end just outside of the postseason again. They won't be bad. And like they'll be in a position where they may be able to be aggressive at the deadline and kind of change that trajectory a little bit. But I really think that this is a team that has a lot of hype surrounding it because it's, the Cubbies and we have to talk about them and whatnot. But like, I don't know, dude. I really am not nearly as confident in the offense as like seemingly like sans Kyle Tucker, like that, that everyone else seems to be.
So I'll touch briefly on this as well. I mean, I've been a known thrower of water on PCA ever since he was a prospect. I liked the trade when they made it, right? I thought they made out like bandits in that Mets deal, which I think is objectively true.
Which deal was that?
The Javi Baez trade.
Javi Baez.
Oh, was fuck me.
So
I shouldn't have asked.
Yeah.
So he was the main return for Javi Baez, and I think that like no one's gonna say you didn't win that. The Mets got half a season of Javi Baez, and you've got a guy that is.
Javi was good in that half season, by the way.
For sure.
But
for
no,
sure.
they still objectively
But they
won
didn't
the
get
trade.
a deep playoff run out of it.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. They objectively won the trade.
Here's my thing with PCA. I have consistently maintained ever since he was a prospect. I'm like, oh, he's like if Harrison Bader was like a little bit better. And I think that that's ultimately proven to be held true. We can talk about his second half adjustments, right? Everyone goes, oh man, he was red hot in the second half. He was so good. I'm going to read you his slash line in the second half. When everything went right and he was performing at optimal performance for him based off his bat path, based on who he is as a hitter, he slashed 262, 310, 425. Now, that with elite defense, that's a good ball player. However, that's like a 3-WAR ball player. So speaking to your point, Scott, when we talk about the offensive capability of this lineup, he's a lot like Harrison Bader. There's a lot of guys that pump 91 in this rotation that need his defense and center, and he will provide that. But that's also going to come, I think, with a 90 WRC plus. And when you're asking him to, there's rumblings about maybe he's the leadoff hitter. That's not good. If that's a guy that you're considering batting leadoff, that's a major concern to me. And so this lineup to me is the optimal version of what the Cardinals look like right now, which is you've got one killer and a bunch of guys that are pretty good, and you're gonna hang around in a lot of games.
Who exactly is the Cardinals killer?
We'll get to the Cardinals.
We'll get to him, but Contreras at 140 WRC plus last year, so I think that's a fair assessment. But I just. It's a lot of like guys that what their ceiling are, Scott, like you mentioned. Like everyone is under this assumption they're going to hit their ceiling.
Tucker will be great.
Tucker will be well.
I think Tucker and Saya are the two guys that
Scott, it's funny you mentioned that.
Kyle Tucker's a dog, dude.
Scott, I've got a statistic for you. All right, we're going to talk about park factor. Okay, in the last 3 years, for left-handed hitters, what do you think the home run factor for Minute Maid Park was? 100 is league average. What do you think it was?
97.
Okay. Scott?
Fuck, dude.
I'll give you a hint. It was top 10 in baseball.
Oh.
What park?
Minute Maid Park.
Mickey Mid.
The ironic Yankees fan. We'll get there.
Hey, I'm just talking about the Crawford boxes.
It was 107. I said
bullshit.
power for lefties, so we're assuming to right field. It was 107. Okay.
I was
going to say like 103. So.
I was. I'm going to say.
Okay. So what do you think it was? What do you think it is in Wrigley the last 3 years rolling average?
Wrigley's
power
is going to
for
be
lefties.
like
93.
90.
Okay. Who said 93?
Peyton,
you're exactly correct. It's 93. So when we talk about the offensive addition that Kyle Tucker will make, I see a lot of home runs that become fly balls. Because
I mean, I don't disagree with that, but
that's what happened to
thinking
Bellinger last year.
that is where all of Kyle Tucker's offensive value comes from.
It's not that. I think that when you look at his like 2024, for example, where even in limited time, it was a 180 WRC plus. I don't think it's outrageous to say that I think he's going to play more like a 125, 130 WRC plus bat in playing as a Chicago Cub.
I think that's a little far.
He's a 139 career average, and he's moving to a park that's 15% worse for him to hit home runs. Speaking of 130 WRC
worse
plus,
overall, no,
I think that he'll be a 130, which is 9% below average. When the park is 14% worse for power for him.
Yeah, but how much worse is it overall? What's the overall park factor comparison?
I'm talking about. Power output, if it's a 15% cut.
Well, yeah, but that's not the only factor that is offense.
Sure. But I think when you're talking about
there is an overall park factor number.
We can look at it. Wrigley is a pitch. It's pretty neutral, I would guess.
It's definitely going to be lower, but it's going to be like 2% lower.
It is 97. It's the fourth worst park in all of baseball for left-handers to hit in.
Yeah, and what is it for Minute Maid? It's going to be like 102.
For Minute Maid, it's 100, but for the Cubs, it's 97.
Yeah, so 3%.
But for home runs, which is the biggest ability to add for WRC+, it's extra base hits. You're not hitting triples in Wrigley. No one hits triples in Wrigley.
Christian, you're being so biased right now, and it's making me annoyed.
I am, but I'm allowed to be. Speaking of 130 WRC+, Wilson Contreras and the St. Louis Cardinals. I'll be honest with you. This team stinks of like 82 and 80. I think the difference between last year and this year, we went 83 and 79 last year, and it felt like I was getting a colonoscopy the entire year. This year, we will go similar record-wise, but it won't feel as bad because I will know that terrorists like Miles Michaelis will not be pitching for me next year. I look at the lineup, and it is full of very good. Very good might be an exaggeration. It's full of pretty good to very good, in my opinion. I don't think there's a spot in the lineup where you can't buy into them being at least league average. The rotation, we'll say it one more time.
Center field.
That'll be Lars Nootbaar, so above average.
Isn't he playing corner? I thought he was playing like right.
Brendan Donovan, Lars Nootbaar, Jordan Walker. That's the outfield. He would have played corner.
I could have sworn that Victor Scott was playing center.
There you go.
Had Arenado been traded, which would have been foolish, he would have been, but he's going to play center field.
Yeah, let's break that down.
What is up?
Let's talk about the Nato thing, because that's been obviously crazy.
Here's the thing. I'm happy to talk about this. When he was traded from the Rockies, I'm going to go back to 2021. For those of you that are unaware, when he requested a trade from the Rockies, it was not, hey, I want to be traded. It was not, hey, here's a list of teams I want to be traded to. It was, I want to play for the St. Louis Cardinals. You are going to get me on the Cardinals. That's why we fleeced in the trade, because we had all the leverage, all of that. He doesn't want to leave. I've always maintained this. I think that when you look at how Contreras and Sonny Gray declined to like, hey, they told Mozeliak, hey, I'm not going to waive my no trade clause. I think that's their right. They got it in the contract. They're there for their own reasons. Sonny Gray, it's because he wants to live close to his wife and kids in Nashville. I think Contreras feels an obligation to see the Cardinals back to what they were, which I love for both of them. Arenado doesn't want to leave. And so him declining the trade to Houston, I think is a product of the fact that, I don't think they're going to win a World Series next year, so I don't want to play there. And so I don't want to trade him. He makes less money every single year on the deal. And he had a horrible year last year by plate standards and was still a 3-WAR player because the defense is elite. So I will happily pay him $20 million in 2026 and $15 million in 2027 to be a 3-WAR average hitting third baseman. I'm really okay with that because I think that especially when you look at our pitching staff, we need good defense. I don't want Nolan Gorman taking taking defensive reps at third base every day.
I just couldn't stand all the Arenado to the Yankees rumors.
I couldn't either because your fan base is horrible at mock trades, and it makes me sick to my
well, also, Arenado would be horrible for the Yankees. Yankee Stadium is like the worst.
I'd hate 15 DRS at third.
Arenado is the worst possible offensive fit in Yankee Stadium. Like, literally the worst possible.
Where?
Yankee Stadium is very bad for right-handed power. Especially for the archetype of hitter that... Especially for the archetype of hitter that Arenado is.
Bad?
Just pull.
What if I told you? What if I told you that it's league average for park factor and 122 for home runs for righties? It's the third easiest stadium to hit home runs in.
But that's not the fucking 400 that it is for lefties, so it's awful.
My point being is it's not bad for righties. It's why Goldie signed there. My point being is when I look at this baseball team, what have we done? We've essentially said we're going to replace Paul Goldschmidt and Wilson Contreras in the lineup with Ivan Herrera and Wilson Contreras. I am pro. Go look at Ivan Herrera's 2024. Put up about 2 F4. Scott, you'll like that as a catcher. Also OPS about 780 as a catcher behind the dish. Can he defend? No. But that's Pedro Pajez's job until Jimmy Crooks is ready. The lineup is the same. We ran it back, but I think we're better by subtraction. When I look at the pitching standpoint, look at the rotation. Michaelis and Matz are not in this rotation by July. Fetty probably isn't either. I look at Quinn Matthews. I look at Michael McGreevy. When I look at Quinn Matthews, prospect pedigree and a lot of success. When I look at Michael McGreevy, I see minor league okay, big major league success. I don't know. I don't think this is a horrible team. It's not good, but I think it's a team that is going to scrape 500 and be interesting to watch because it's going to be 25-year-olds getting the reps instead of 35-year-olds. That's where I sit.
It's a nice change of pace.
Literally, it is, though. Like,
that wasn't sarcasm. That was,
I remember saying a couple years ago to you, Scott, there's maybe even a video on our page where I said, like, I'd rather lose with 25-year-olds and know what we have than scrape a first-round exit with 35-year-olds.
Sure.
And I think that the organization is coming around on that. Scott, how do you feel about how do you not about the Cardinals in general, obviously, because that would be a separate hour-long rant from you, I'm sure. But how do you feel about the Cardinals in 2025?
I think that I think they are kind of like going through some, I don't know, I guess you would call them like growing pains too. Like I think that
a reset is what the front office has coined. I think that's a fair term.
Yeah, I think I really don't like the pitching.
I don't blame you.
I really don't like much of anything to do with the pitching. I think the offense is actually still pretty damn competitive, but I don't think it really matters when the because of how low I think of the pitching.
Are you super out on the bullpen, may I ask?
Not the back end, no.
But wait, so you're low on the high leverage portion of the pen?
No, the opposite of that.
Oh,
I think you have a couple of 3.
Are you underestimating the Phil Maton acquisition? We finally signed a major league contract. You know, I'm not saying World Series inbound, but I checked the Vegas line.
Shout out Phil Maton.
Got off a fat fucking ass and signed a free agent.
If it wasn't for Phil Maton, the Maton last name would be worth like -12 WAR.
That's correct.
Yeah, I don't mind the back end of the pen. I hate the rotation. I think that the lineup is actually pretty good. I'm excited for, like, is Mason Wynn gonna play?
He was a 4-WAR player last year. He played every day.
No. Okay, well, fair enough then. I was under
he played like 150 games at short, man.
I remember, obviously, down the stretch last year, especially, I was not sure if that was like foregone conclusion, like he's just going to get handed the keys over, which I'm glad he clearly is. Obviously, like, going to continue pushing Jordan Walker propaganda until that.
Hey, now's the time to buy your stocks. PSA for everyone watching. Now's the time to buy. All right, the price will never be better than right now. He almost got Mickey Mantled on a drain pipe 2 weeks ago. So
that's for a reason.
Woof.
So yeah, man. Like I don't know. I honestly don't have any like super brash opinions on the Cardinals. It's just like they're gonna look a lot like they did. I feel like at one point in the end of last season where it was like, oh, here's a 7-9 loss for the St. Louis Cardinals, and they're like, here, you know what I mean? Like, Can I
ask you this, Scott? If I may, I want to ask you something. I know you said you're a little more out on the rotation. If I were to replace Steven Matz and Miles Michaelis,
if you call up Tink Hence, I'm all in.
Okay, the thing is he can't hit a broadside of a barn, so I don't want him to in the major leagues this year.
Really don't care.
If you were to swap out, if it were me, and you were to swap out Michaelis and Matz with McGreevy and Matthews, I really like the rotation. I think that Gray, Matthews, Fetty as a 1-2-3 is is it elite? No, but it's a good 1-2-3. Like Fetty. So do I. I'm all in on Fetty. And I'll be honest, you go look at Andre Palante under the hood, like he's I know it's an archetype that people don't chase in terms of prospects and all that. I'm sorry though, he is a ground ball god. We're talking about a guy that had a 3.7 ERA last year with a 3.5 xERA and a 3.7 FIP. Like at a certain point, if you're just that good at it, that's what you are. And McGreevy is similar to Palante. So when I look at this rotation, I think by the end of the year, I think that's what it's going to be as the starting five. And so,
yeah, which I would love, and I'm sure that you would too. I think, to be fair to the not to be fair to the Cubs, because I don't really care about being fair to the Cubs, but I think that when talking about like the question marks that the Cubs lineup have, despite the names that they have, I think that there is plenty of that still that you could argue St. Louis has as well. Not that it's, again, like I like, honestly, St. Louis's lineup. Not that that's like a guarantee or anything like that, but I think that it's far from just like a foregone conclusion for some of those guys to produce offensively. So, I really don't disagree. I think this is anywhere from a 80 to 84 win team. And like, if they can do the Cardinals thing and randomly get crazy hot for 2 weeks and then play 500 ball the rest of the year, then, maybe you fuck around and do something. But like, I'm not expecting them to be like uber competitive down the stretch, I guess. But they're definitely not going to like bottom out or anything.
I'll say this. There's two things, right? You talk about the questions with the lineup. It's funny. I have less questions with the Cardinals lineup. I have less questions, but they hold greater magnitude. There are two questions with the Cardinals lineup. What is Nolan Gorman and what is Jordan Walker?
Sure.
If they are both above league average hitters, this is a team that's going to win like 85 games, because the rest of the lineup, in Newbar, it's a health question. He hits when he's healthy. Like Mason Wynn has proved he can do it. Wilson Contreras, elite when healthy. I think the move to first base really helps. Brendan Donovan, like boomer comment, but like he's the definition of like professional hitter. Like he just is. He's a walk god. He hit 15 bombs last year. Like
he's a dog.
I love Brendan Donovan's the definition of a Cardinals baseball player. Like
correct. Yeah.
You know what a good litmus test is? I'll never have my Nana actually do a video, but my Nana's love rating of a player is how I know how much of a old school Cardinals player they are. She cried when Tommy Edman got traded, and Brendan Donovan is her current favorite player. So that should give you that litmus test of where we're at with Cardinal ball player. I expect this rotation to be better as the year goes on by subtraction. I think Matz gets moved to the pen because of an injury. I think Miles Michaelis, they will just eat the money in DFA, or the Orioles will be so desperate that
shoot him into the sun.
My own words, but please do. I mean, like, if it were me, I would have DFA'd him already. But unfortunately, money talks. I don't know. And Scott, to your point, the high end of this bullpen is really good. So those games where it is 9-7, I think we can close those out and get wins. We're not. It's not a Rockies situation. But yeah. So I don't know. I know I'm taking too long on the Cardinals, but I could talk about them for like 4 hours every single day.
Yeah. No, you're good.
I'm also a little bit biased because I just watched Quinn Matthews shove 3 scoreless with 3 strikeouts in the spring breakout game. So if it were me, he'd be getting 32 starts this year, but they're going to start him in AAA until Matz has hamstring tightness or some crap like that. Drew, is there anybody for the Cardinals that you're kind of keeping an eye on or that you're excited about?
I'm also a big Brendan Donovan fan.
JC guy, Drew.
No, I'm not. No.
You don't like a little. You don't
JC,
like
JC.
He's like that's the most offensive thing anyone's ever said to me.
I would like for.
He could be playing. He'd be playing third base on opening day for the Yankees if he was in your org.
Well, yeah, so
I don't even say that as a joke. He would be.
So could current day Josh Donaldson could play.
So would Peyton, dude.
Right,
cool.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's because Peyton is sexy in a premier.
Carson,
athlete.
your nana could play third base for the Yankees right now.
Well, my nana could play third base for about 25 teams in baseball, if you ask me, but that's because I'm biased.
Although
he could be the
Carson will attest to this. The Yankees' third base situation does not have. In Moneyball, they talked about how a player wasn't going to be good because he had an ugly girlfriend. Oswaldo Cabrera does not have that problem. I just saw him.
Why'd you tie that to just me? You would know.
Any Cardinal fan can attest to.
Any Cardinal fan can attest to boomer scouting. I'm glad that was recording. But is there anybody else, Drew, that you got maybe an eye on?
I'm interested to see what the Cardinals do throughout the season.
Me too.
Because I think it could go a lot of ways where a team could get really desperate for pitching, and I think Sonny Gray or Fetty could be on the table in terms of if you are getting a ton back in terms of prospect value.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm interested to see if that ends up happening.
So if I'm reading,
there's so little on the trade block in terms of starting pitching right now that there are teams that are going to be super desperate and will trade you really good prospects for those two guys.
So last thing I'll say with the Cardinals is Sonny Gray, I think, is off the table. So he had a full no trade clause. The reason, not the whole reason he signed with us, but one of the big reasons he signed with us is his wife and kids live in Nashville. So I think the answer is Fetty. And here's what I think the Cardinals are banking on: Matt's to be healthy. I don't think he even gets moved. I think it's Michaelis is healthy and not dog shit, which big ask. And
Michaelis is in the Stroman tier right now.
Correct. And Fetty is healthy. And I think that is where Quinn Matthews and Michael McGreevy get their playing time, is those two are moved. I think it's much more likely that the Cardinals end the year with a rotation something like, and Scott, I know, I'm a Tin Cans guy as well, but I don't think he's making the major league roster. I think it's more than likely the Cardinals end the year with a rotation something like Sonny Gray, Quinn Matthews, Steven Matz, Andre Palante, and Gordon Graceffo. Because I think Quinn Matthews is a guy that contributes next year, not this year. So I agree on Fetty. I think the Cardinals are waiting till the deadline because they want to get max price. Because I think
exactly.
with Busch Stadium and how all that operates, it would not shock me if Quinn Matthews stays in AAA for like half the year, and it would upset me. But
if you end up getting a good prospect in return for Fetty, it would kind of all be forgiven.
Yeah, but I struggle with the idea. I really think, Drew, before we started recording, I go back to the idea of, I swear to God, it's going to be the All-Star break, and we're going to be less than 5 games behind first place in the Central. And then that becomes a very interesting conversation. Where
right, let's move on to the Brewers.
I was going to say, we should move on to. I'm going to use the restroom again. I hate this ball club. You guys go ahead and get started. I'm not going to be biased or unbiased about it.
The Brewers,
we're aware.
The Brewers, their issues come from ownership, obviously, being incredibly cheap. But I think Their lineup is gonna be decent to good, at least. Like, obviously, Contreras and Churio are great, and I think they're both very electric players. But outside of those two, they have a lot of mid. And I absolutely love Caleb Durbin, but he's probably going to be playing second or third for them. I don't know who they're moving out of Ortiz or who's the second? Terrain. They're going to move one of them to short, but I'm not sure which one. So Durbin's going to play the other one. And then, so those three are just like, they have a lot of guys who are going to produce probably two WAR in Blake Perkins and Sal Frelick and Durbin and Terang and Ortiz. And a lot of that isn't from offense. They are a really young team that has a ton of base stealers who are going to produce value on the bases. They're going to produce value on defense. And I think that losing Willy Adames is a tough loss, and their offense is going to suffer for it. But I also have a hard time believing that the Brewers are going to like utterly drop off a cliff because they are like another Devil Magic team who just manages to be good regardless of what they do. Like, despite intentionally trying to shoot themselves in the foot.
You do not say Devil Magic about that ball club, okay? That's stolen valor.
I think their rotation is fine now and will be better because Woodruff is supposed to be back at some point. Maybe. But Peralta is good. Nestor Cortez is good. They have, I think Tobias Myers is fake good. Like, I don't think he's as good as he was last year.
Doesn't really matter if he's a Brewer. Let's be honest.
Yeah, that's true. I think their bullpen is going to be really good just because they are really good at developing arms. And I think it's hard to count them out. So I think they're going to be good, but I don't know if they're going to be able to live up to what they were last year.
Yeah, I think this is a team that's another kind of slam dunk for regression. But in the same boat, they're not going to bottom out so much that they're terrible. I still honestly, I still don't hate the rotation. At full health, I still like Peralta a lot. I don't know. All of my questions with this team are offensive, and I think that we saw that toward the end of the season and in October last year. But I think that that is where, to your point, man, losing Adames is a big blow to a team that already wasn't super fantastic offensively. And that's where a lot of my questions lie. I love Ortiz. He is legitimately, when he was in Baltimore, was one of my favorite prospects in baseball. His hitting profile is just so fun and a little bit older school in terms of just bat to ball skills. He is awesome, and I think very highly of him, and I think that he's going to be really solid. We saw for a couple of months last year, he was hitting unbelievably well. So yeah, man, I think that there's pieces there, and I think that long term they will be able to continue putting out a competitive product. But I also expect them to take a I don't want to say a comfortable step back, but I don't expect them to repeat last year either. I guess I agree with you.
Yeah. Speaking of Ortiz's hitting profile and knowing you're a Tigers guy, I absolutely adore McGonigal as a prospect, and he's kind of that similar profile.
McGonigal's a dog, yeah.
He could be he could legit be one of the top hit tools in all of prospects in baseball.
My legitimate thoughts about the Brewers, I do reflect similar of just Scott, I believe you brought this point up with the Reds, where it was listen, if you don't have pitching in the NL Central, you're not winning the division. You're not going to be capable of it. I think they have plenty of it in terms of relieving and starting pitching. Again, it's how many games is Yelich going to play? Garrett Mitchell appears to be on the Lars Nootbaar track of it's a really awesome 400 plate appearances. Unfortunately, it's not going to be 500 or 550 because of his own body. What does Churio's ceiling look like? Is Rhys Hoskins a husk, or is he actually going to be a good baseball player? I don't know. To me, it's a lot of we'll figure it out, which is, I think, very similar to a lot of the teams in the NL Central. I'll be perfectly honest. I guess this might be the second really hot take I'm going to provide. It would not shock me if all 5 teams in the NL Central win at least 80 games in 2025, and none of them win 90. That's a real take I think I've sort of come to, where all of these teams have things that make them insanely competitive. Whether it be with Milwaukee, it's your rotation in a 3 or 4 game series. Pittsburgh, same deal. It's a rotation. Reds and Cardinals, maybe it's more of a lineup. And Cubs, it's sort of being solid enough everywhere where it's if you falter somewhere, they'll get you on that regard. So we can hop into predictions for the Central, but like I said, I guess I'll just start with my predictions then. I don't think any team is winning. I am bricked for a Soto home run. I don't think any team is winning 90 games, and I don't think any team is winning less than 80. Having said that, I will go Reds, Pirates. I'll go Reds, Pirates. I feel good about that. I'm on camera, and I'm a biased fan. I don't give a fuck, man. Brewers 3rd, Cardinals 2nd, Cubs 1st. That's my opinion. I don't care.
If you're gonna be biased, at least be biased all the way. Just say Cardinals first.
No, that's not feasible. But I mean, it's not unfeasible. But come on, listen. If my okay, do you know what has to happen for the Cardinals to legitimately win the division? Here's what has to happen: Lars Nootbaar has to be healthy for 150 games. Plausible, not unstoppable. Walker has to be a neutral defender and a 120 WRC plus bat. I've seen him do one of those things. I'm hard-pressed to believe he'll do the other. That also means Nolan Gorman has to be a league average hitter. I want him traded to Seattle today. And that also means that Quinn Matthews and Michael McGreevy both at least make 20 starts. I think one of those will happen. I don't think both will. So, don't think so. Scott, what do you got for the NL Central?
Yeah, I'm going to take Cardinals 5.
You know what? No. Listen, I totally understand if you do. Like I said, I don't think any team is
genuinely don't.
I don't think any team is winning less than 80 and more than 90, so I wouldn't fault you.
I think the Reds are winning less than 80 games. I am very low on the Reds this year. So I'm going to have them in 5. I'm going to have Pittsburgh in 4. I agree with that. I will probably go Cardinals 3. I don't think any of these 5 teams are good enough, in my brain, to be division winners. So I'm going through and I'm well, I do have to pick one of them.
Scott, I'll say this, and I think you'll agree with me on this. Not a single one of these 5 teams is good enough to win a 5-game playoff series.
None of them are making it past the division series.
Right. I agree with that. I'll go.
Come find us in October when the Pirates, with the power of friendship, win the division at 82 and 80 and are somehow in the NLCS, dude.
Or what
and
happens?
Skeens has thrown.
That's like an MLB The Show simulation.
And Skeens has thrown 261 innings or something fucking outlandish.
I will go. No doubt about it. Who homered? Dylan Dingler just hit an absolute nuke off of Andrew Heaney.
OH.
Bang.
None of us are going to finish.
Scott just ignored that one, I see.
No, I almost got banned from the internet again. I'm going to go 5 through 1, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, St. Louis. fuck me, man. Milwaukee, Chicago, I guess, but like I don't like the Cubs this year, and yet
Neither do I.
guess.
Scott, can I give my take on the when I said I don't even remember who I said for second and first should be the Cardinals for first.
You
But
said Cardinals 2,
I did.
Cubs 1.
Cubs 1.
Cubs 1. Okay, I'll say Cardinals and Brewers have the exact same record, but Cardinals are in second on run diff and head to head.
What is up with these predictions, dude? You really are the Instagram kid that the Nick sends
You know
out.
what?
You are literally him.
Scott, there's a big difference. My projections are at least somewhat reasonably attainable and don't directly slander a guy and like ruin his career.
Don't hope that he tears his ACL in
That's
the
what I'm
All-Star
saying.
game.
Dude,
He has,
that is Carson today. He's like on the third Thursday in June. This guy is gonna hit a triple.
Scott, I'm just gonna start doing this, like, like just devil incantation. In my defense, the Cardinals finished ahead of the Cubs last year because of head to head. They had the same record, so
Did
I'm
they
kind
really? Fuck,
They did,
dude.
yeah.
Fuck the
Scott-
Cubs. No, I'm not picking them to win this division. Fuck it.
You don't have to.
No. I'm not. It's a
Yeah.
awful. But like, man, I don't like anybody.
That's my
I'll go.
point. That's why with the Cardinals Vegas line was like 75.5. I'm like, dude, no one in the division is good enough. We're gonna win 75 games. Like, are you out of your mind? Like, no one is good enough to like push us down. Like,
Yeah.
everyone is gonna be mid. Everyone.
Yeah. I'm a little bit different because I think the Pirates are gonna fall apart again. I'm putting them at 5.
Wow.
All right.
Nice.
I think what happened last year is probably going to happen again, where they start off pretty well and then fall apart because somebody gets hurt. I don't know who it'll be, but somebody will get hurt, and they need their entire rotation to stay healthy if they want to be a 500 team.
They did win 76 games last year though, by quote unquote falling apart.
Yeah, but that's not 500. That's what I'm saying.
Fair enough.
I think they're going to be a like 75 win team again.
All right. Who do you got 4-1 then?
Cincy,
Good take.
Cardinals, Cubs, Brewers.
Brewers back to back.
That would be my fucking Everest personally. Peyton, what do you have?
Cincinnati, not feeling it. Pittsburgh, I would love to put the first, but not feeling it. St. Louis. That felt weird saying St. Louis instead of just the Cardinals. Anyway, Cardinals, Cubs, Brewers.
Wow.
5-1.
Wow. Peyton, that's incredibly disrespectful.
I'm literally the one that told you if you want
Peyton
to
notably anti-black excellence by picking the Cardinals to finish third. Should have pointed that out.